Wagwan. In case you're just joining us, karibu sana. This is Good Morning Kenya. I'm Jain Wambui, and I am thoroughly appreciating your feedback in regards to the conversation that we just had about the opportunities that are there for our youth. And I have Dan Lugosi on Twitter who's saying, tell the government to change Kenya Power from a profit-driven entity, reduce power and fuel taxes so that other big manufacturers can make a comeback here in our country, and consequently youth will get employed. All are not cut for business. All right. We also have Lil Baby KE saying, would you all agree that in the future most of the careers are going to be automated, so the people who succeed will have to be curious, innovative, with resilience to adapt to changes, opportunities, because opportunities never come on a silver platter. Keep up with the changing times. Don't just sit there and complain that the water around you is rising and you are not rising to the occasion. Keep up with the changing times. And again, the government, we need to look at some of these entities and just look at how they are run, to move from it all being profit driven, and look at how they can be able to accommodate other manufacturers that would go a long way in providing opportunities for them youth. Keep talking to us. Again, the hashtag is Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. At KBC Channel 1 ever remains to be the official station handle. My handle is Jain Wambui across all the social media platforms, so do keep sending in your views, but we'll be addressing them as they come in. So right now we want to switch gears. From matters of women at the forefront, we now want to go to the next conversation, and this is our health segment for today. And we are going to be talking about the general management of diabetes. And to help us with this conversation, we have with us in studio this morning Dr. Nicola Oketch, who is, I'm going to say this slowly, lest my roots start showing, endocrinologist. She is an endocrinologist working with Fisher Hospital. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making time to be with us this morning. Are you on social media?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Tricky grounds. Yes. All right. When you're ready to share, you will share with us. Okay. So again, this is a health conversation. Diabetes is slowly becoming a silent crisis here in our country, and not just in our country, but the world over. But what are we doing to manage it? And even before we get to the management part of it, what preventative measures are we putting in place for ourselves? And that is what we just want to discover today together. Again, we are here to learn. So questions, comments, clarifications, shoot them through. We will be addressing them with Dr. this morning. So let's start with the big word, endocrinology. Mtu akisikia hiyo anafikiria endometriosis, what other endos are there? So there's somebody called endo, as in we all have our own definitions or schools of thoughts of what diabetes falls under. But endocrinology, what is it about?
Well, endocrinology basically encompasses all disorders that are related to hormones, diabetes being one of them. Yes. Endo essentially in medical terms means within, and endocrine means hormone-producing organ. So endocrinology is basically the study of hormone-producing organs and the diseases that are associated with them.
All right. Yeah. You're in biology, high school. So in case you had forgotten, refer back to high school biology. All right, love that. Very simple to just help us better understand what that big term is. So we are done with that big term. So don't start wondering why we're talking about diabetes under endocrinology. So maybe we could get to even understand your journey to getting to where you are. What is it that made you gravitate towards this particular practice?
I have always enjoyed complex things.
Yeah.
And right from medical school undergraduate. In fact, I remember specifically during my third year, there was a lecturer, and she's actually one of the people who we work in close association with at the Fisher. She's called Dr. Acharya. She actually really inspired me to focus more on endocrinology. Of course, there was a bit of confusion as
along the journey.
Yes, you want to do this, you want to do that.
Yeah.
But eventually, when I did my postgraduate, which was in internal medicine, I did love endocrinology. So when I went to subspecialize, it was just natural for me to have chosen that as my line of specialization.
He did to the call.
Yes.
Now, let's not get to this whole conversation about diabetes. Let's start with the actual definition and the types of diabetes that are there, again, for the benefit of our viewers who are watching us this morning.
Okay, diabetes is a spectrum of disorders, but the underlying problem, what we call pathology, is an inability to control your blood sugars.
Okay.
So basically we divide them into 3 broad categories. There is type 1, there is type 2, and what we refer to as gestational diabetes, which is diabetes that occurs in pregnancy. Of course, in medicine, we know there are a few other subclasses, but in general terms and for a layman, we would subdivide them into 3 main classes.
Into those 3 main categories. Now, from where you sit just interacting with the different patients that you do on a daily basis, how are we doing in terms of the it being a concern in the medical space here in our country? Diabetes as a general condition.
Not good.
We're not doing well.
We are not doing well. And you know, you don't actually just look at diabetes itself. There's a condition that we refer to as pre-diabetes, which is just before diabetes.
Is that like pre-exposure to some sense of like layman language?
Pre-before.
Okay.
So you're not normal and you're not diabetic, but you're just somewhere there in between. You're at risk of moving to diabetes if you don't take care of yourself. So there are so many people who come to me with abnormal blood sugars. They're not in the range of diabetes, but you know, of course, this patient is at risk of getting diabetes 3, 5, 10 years down the line. So at that point, even maybe before the pre-diabetes, you really have to start watching your lifestyle. So in terms of our control as a population, we are not doing well. And I see it a lot in the young population.
And that brings me to now that predisposing aspect of it. What are some of those factors that are putting us at risk? And I like the fact that you've mentioned age, because the age is clearly an indicator, or from what you're seeing, the age groups that we are seeing that are exposed are the youth. Why is it so? Why do you think it is the youth that are, from what you're seeing, so many that are coming to you that are at risk of getting diabetes?
Okay. Everything in medicine, we take a 2-prong approach. So it's genetics and your environmental exposure.
Okay.
So in genetics, of course, you have to look at how your genetic pool is. We always ask our patients, is there someone in your family who has diabetes? If they have diabetes, which kind of diabetes do they have? And most of the time we find that those who have a genetic predisposition, they will have someone in their family with type 2 diabetes. Type 2 actually has a stronger genetic predisposition than type 1 diabetes.
All right.
Okay. So then we move on to environmental exposure.
Before we get there,
sure,
I know somebody's going to ask, you've mentioned type 2 being having a higher chance for genetic, it being passed genetically. Now let's just define type 1 and type 2 for clarity purposes.
Okay.
Yes.
So type 1, the patient completely lacks insulin. There is an organ in the body that just sits right above the liver called the pancreas, and this is the organ that tends to produce insulin. Insulin is involved in the body's handling of glucose. Okay. So in patients with type 1, the organ is almost completely destroyed, such that it's unable to produce the insulin that it requires to deal with the blood sugar surges that occur because of eating and just as generally. So type 1 diabetics lack insulin, so they are not able to control their blood sugar.
Consequently, high sugar levels.
Consequently, high sugar levels. In type 2, they might have the insulin because their pancreas is functioning, but they have insufficient levels. Or alternatively, they have the sufficient levels, but their body is resistant to it. So the resistance comes more so in patients who are obese, especially with what we call the central obesity around the stomach area. So that's the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
And consequently in type 2, low sugar levels?
No, still high, because your body, though it has the insulin, it's not sensing it. It's not sensing the insulin.
Or in the bloodstream in itself.
And so it's not able to send those signals to the body to bring down the blood sugar. Okay. So the sugar still remains high.
All right. Yeah. And you had also mentioned a third category, and this is gestational diabetes.
Yes.
And this is specific to expectant mothers.
Yes.
What brings it about?
Genetic predisposition. Yeah, most of the time it's genetic predisposition. And then, of course, your body weight, your BMI. Yeah,
all those come into play when it comes to gestational diabetes.
Yes.
Now, going back to where we were, issues to do with age, because one would think the younger you are, the less chances you would have of exposure, and especially to diabetes. But then again comes in those issues that you've mentioned, and that number one is lifestyle. What are those aspects of lifestyle that you think, from a medical point, contribute to adding to the risk for the younger people especially?
Okay, just going back, being young is not a safety measure for you not to develop diabetes. Of course, the older you get, the more likely you are to get.
But the younger you are, you know, your body is able to put up a fight.
Exactly.
As opposed to when you're older.
Yeah, but you see, we are adopting the Western kind of lifestyle. We are eating more of the refined foods, the junk foods. We are less active. Most people sit at their offices, they go to work in their car, they sit from 9 to 5, they come back home, they shower maybe and eat and enter bed.
Go to bed.
So really, it's a sedentary kind of lifestyle. There's no physical activity. And those are some of the things that we counsel our patients to incorporate more of, moving about, so that they can be able to manage this condition.
All right.
Or prevent it.
Absolutely.